Beacher feet is a dance style that came out of DC's go-go music scene. It originated from a dance called the hee-haw back in the day, and grew into this more fluid, modern style by the late 90s and early 2000s.
You know, it became the staple dance of Washington, D.C.
This is the story of Marvin Gross, better known as Slush, who made a name for himself, especially on the south side of D.C., for creating a popular dance, Beat Your Feet, a dance that evolved over time and made its way to a national platform like the America's Best Dance Crew show, influencing people overseas and more. Slush was loved by many. Tragically though, his story ends with his life being cut short, murdered on his way back to the Berry Farms community. Also, it includes another murder, which was a retaliation murder that happened at Sursum Quarters in the Temple Court area. But first, let's go back in time before Slush for a brief moment, cause it all tie in. If you ever heard someone say stars were born at the Go-Go, it's no exaggeration. Thanks to the Godfather Chuck Brown and his band for creating a sound, lighting a torch in the city, becoming an inspiration to all the bands, rappers, and dancers to come after. And that they did. That's how much of a stronghold Go-Go had over the area, pre-internet era. This is how rappers like DC Scorpio, Fat Rodney, Stinky Dink, and other DC artists were able to get their shine, for real, from Go-Go. Go-Go ran things, and the OG said Rodney made rap cool. He brought flow. What you gonna do? So in '87, DC Scorpio won a rap contest at the Chapter 3 nightclub, judged by Dougie Fresh, rapping a song called Stone Cold Hustler. And these two guys, both being popular rap artists in DC, both coming up in a time where rap was taking a backseat to Go-Go, DC Scorpio being from Southeast and Fat Rodney being from Uptown would battle it out at the Go-Go's, tagging along with bands and going back and forth on stage.
Scorpio, you never ever wanna see me. I'm a mix, I made you create. Funky Rodney, yo, I take time to make a mix flow. Come back to the crow. I don't be at the show, y'all. I be in a limo. It's like you be in a limo. The party is over. Coming up the street in my Range Rover.
And I wasn't able to see this live with my own eyes, but I can imagine how entertaining it must have been to see, for real. It all goes back to Go-Go being a stage to show your talents. Go-Go isn't a selfish culture. It includes the people. It's the platform that keeps giving.
Even if you don't watch America's Best Dance Crew, it's 75 million people watch this show across the world. So this is really probably the first time since Chuck Brown or since James Funk played in Germany that you're going to see go-go music and DC culture on this type of national level.
Some simple moves that actually may be more universal, not just tailored to DC. And it may not even be considered a dance, but still people do it till this day, which is the two-step.
We in the club doing the same old two-step.
But one of the most popular dances in the 90s made hot by the Junkyard Band, aka JYB, was called the hee-haw. And it was sort of a big thing when it was popping. This I know. This I am old enough for. They had contests where guys battled one-on-one, adding their own flavor to it. And later on, Slush would use elements of the hee-haw to form his own dance, somewhere around 99 or 2000. Marvin Gross, aka Slush. He represented a community that gave birth to many talented people. Berry Farms in Southeast, a serious neighborhood. And so Slush loved music, especially go-go. He attended Anacostia High School, a school he would influence, and you would see how later, but there was an article that said Slush went to a go-go one day and started dancing and acting out a bunch of crazy stuff on the floor, and soon after, people started mimicking him and saying they were doing the slush. A lot of people in the city said it was Polo, the lead talker for TCB, that first started chanting "Beat Your Feet" at a go-go, which basically solidified the dance that Slush created. Slush was popular among a certain age group, and I can vouch for that because I fall within that age group. I remember hearing the name Slush as a teen quite often. When he created his dance and it took off, kids inside of the Anacostia High School would battle it out in the lunchroom and the hallways doing the dance he created. That's how he influenced the school, or the kids attending it. Someone would imitate the breakdown beat pattern while banging on the tables, and circles would form and guys would go at it. You see, the beginning of the Beat Your Feet movement was something like pop locking in New York. Who remembers the movie Beat Street? It was similar energy as far as the battling go. Back then in the early 2000s, the dance moves to Beat Your Feet were way more imaginative. People acted out their moves more compared to now, where it's probably a little more footwork. Either way, it started with one man who was inspired by those that came before him. That's why in the beginning of this video, it was important to touch on the past. Rest in peace to Chuck and Rodney. And the others, the same with Polo. He was inspired by Big G. Lil Chris was inspired by Polo and the bounce beat. The moves that Slush created represented a new era. By the time when Slush's new dance was becoming popular, the Go-Go's had already taken a major hit in DC. Some of the people who wasn't familiar or a part of the culture blamed the music itself for the bodies. And I even covered a story about the cop, Brian Gibson, who was killed in front of the Ibex nightclub back in '97. They shut the doors on that club the very next day for good. But it didn't start there, nor did it end there. The Go-Go's in DC sometimes become the battlegrounds for neighborhoods and individuals who had beef. Saturday, July 27th, 2002, about 3 a.m., Slush was heading home from a Go-Go. On his way back to Bury Farms, he wasn't alone. Another guy was following along Suitland Parkway. Slush was shot and killed near the light before turning left into the Bury Farms community. The news would quickly spread about Slush being killed. The streets had spoken, and the word got back to some friends of Slush. The guy that allegedly murdered Slush was from Sursum Quarters. They wanted blood. They had a name, but they used a female associate from the quarters to get him a full description. They said he had dreadlocks and was present in the Temple Courts area. This was less than a week after Slush was killed. The two men, they saw a guy with dreadlocks sitting with his back to him. His name was James Fisher. They approached him from behind, guns drawn, and one of the guys shot him 3 times in the back with a 9mm. Fisher didn't make it. He died. But the problem is, he was the wrong guy. He had nothing to do with Slush's murder. It was said that Fisher resembled the guy they were actually looking for, and just one day later after the murder, another man with dreads from the same area cut his dreads off. What's understood ain't gotta be explained. The court documents said after Fisher was murdered, some friends were reminiscing about Slush, and the guy says, "We handled that already." They ended up going to prison, but still an innocent guy was murdered. Unnecessary lives were lost, including Slush. I don't know why he was targeted, But what I do know is he meant a lot to a lot of people and had a hand in pushing the culture forward with his innovative dance moves. The hype surrounding the Beat Your Feet dance started to lose a little energy sometime after Slush was killed.
It was kind of like, who does that anymore? That's dry culture. People falling away from their culture. Later, people just beating their feet, throwing up videos, walking up to me, hey, ain't you the guy that do the Beat Your Feet videos? Hey, you amazing.
But then with the emergence of social media apps like TikTok and guys doing videos, as well as the crews like the Beat Your Feet Kings and Flat Out Boys, it gave it a resurgence it needed to help that movement stay alive, creating dance shops all around, even making its way all the way to Poland with the DC Crazy Legs. So the way they honor Marvin Slush is by having something called Slush Day, where the people celebrate his life and his contributions to the culture of dance and go-go. It's important that we pay homage to everyone that had a hand in pushing this thing forward. Also, I can't forget one of his sisters, TT, who I spoke with, which is how I learned about the school he attended as well as where his life was taken. She has a clothing brand with the Slush merch, so I'll add her business IG page across the screen for anyone who want to support her or Slush. You can hit her up for some merch. Yeah, man, #Slush. So rest in peace to the inventor of the Beat Your Feet. May your name live on forever. The Beat Your Feet King, Slush.